And we're in Finland, so I have to obviously ask you about the Russia-Ukraine war. I think in Europe there was a feeling that India adopted what we would regard as a kind of moral equivalence between the two sides, that you were saying, well, it's a big shame, but maybe they should stop, but you were too sympathetic towards Russia, too willing to buy oil from Russia. So how would you explain that position to the people here?
Well, I'd make two observations. I buy oil. I buy oil based on cost and availability. So at that point of time, much of the oil available on the market was Russian, because Europeans were essentially buying up the Middle East oil, which was our traditional supply. So circumstances pushed us in a certain direction. But since you spoke about moral ambiguity, I would say this, no European country has been attacked with Indian weapons. I wish I could say that for European weapons vis-à-vis India. So keep that in mind.
Be more explicit so that people understand what you're saying.
Europeans sell weapons which are used to attack India. Not now, for many, many years. We Indians have never done anything to endanger Europe. So I think that's a reasonable point.
Okay. Minister Nusseibeh, I mean, you are right, in the front line. And we were all hoping for a peace settlement, but it looks like the war's flared up again. How do things seem viewed from the UAE? In the earlier panel, they're saying this war's going on for a while.
Thank you for the question. Thank you to the host for having us. It's been a really quiet time in my part of the world, as you've observed.
That's why you came here.
That's why I came here. I had not much to do, and this looked like an interesting way to debate some of the policy decisions we make often at such a rapid pace. I think that's one of the fundamental changes in how we make our decisions today that has had impact. The pace of which we gather information, that we look at disinformation, and we make policy decisions has had a very enormous impact on being able to debate those outcomes in a measured way. I'd really like to also thank both of you because you're doing a lot of my work for me today. The Ambassadors Forum, the UAE Ambassadors Forum is meeting in Abu Dhabi today, and they asked me to address it from my hotel room in Helsinki last night. I said I have far better practitioners sitting on the panel here today, so you are being webcast into the UAE Global Ambassadors Forum, so thank you for doing that as well. But it is a critical time that our ambassadors are meeting, and they are hearing a number of our leaders address them about some of the key takeaways that the last 100 days have shown us as a country, as we have faced, if you imagine Helsinki or New Delhi, facing over 3,000 drones and missiles in the space of 100 days, in a country that has been geared towards relative peace and prosperity for quite a number of decades. I think you can imagine the enormity of the shock that we've had to absorb in being able to adapt to that and to be resilient in those circumstances. So the first takeaway has been that the investment we have made in being resilient as a society, as an economy, but also in terms of our military capacity has paid off. That has really paid off, and that has been over a decade in the making. I think you've seen that we've responded to over 90% of those attacks successfully. And I see many of my colleagues, but also from the UN in New York, but also many ambassadors who have lived through that in the UAE, who have felt that the UAE protected them as if they were, like the Indian community, home. I think that's the other key takeaway about the UAE lesson and the model, is that it has been a one society response to this crisis.
I think the truth is, to a great deal, everybody has that sense of it's not my war. We don't admit it at times, but it's very natural, because at the end of the day, the more stakes you have, the closer it is to you, the more vested you are. It's your war. And for somebody else, the further away they are, it's not their war. I think there needs to be a degree of understanding of that, and the expectation that, my war, as I said, had this statement thrown back at me repeatedly. So I don't repeat, I don't want to dwell on it too far. But I think the expectation that in the sense Ukraine, because it is so strong in Europe's calculus, is therefore shared by the rest of the world to the same degree, is no more reasonable than the rest of the world. Each region would have its own priorities.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.